gentlemen, one of the greatest fighters of all time, one of the greatest welterweights ever, and one of the greatest human beings you can ever meet who helped us build this sport and business, Matt Hughes!
Matt Hughes is a name that commands respect in the world of mixed martial arts.
Matt Hughes is a pioneer in this sport and has helped this sport evolve.
As a former two-time UFC Welterweight Champion, and with a record of 45 wins and 9 losses, he's undoubtedly one of the greatest fighters to have ever entered the Octagon.
Matt Hughes, ladies and gentlemen.
In fact, he's even been inducted into both the UFC Hall of Fame and into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, which is an incredible achievement. But there's much more to Matt than his impressive fighting credentials. He grew up on a farm in Hillsboro, Illinois, and his journey to becoming a world-renowned fighter was filled with obstacles and challenges. Matt's story is one of perseverance, determination, and an unrelenting desire to succeed.
But right now, we have new details about a crash early this morning.
In 2017, however, everything changed when Matt was involved in a life-threatening car accident. Since then, his personal life has been the subject of intense media scrutiny, with reports of violent and erratic behavior following the accident. Some people see him as a hero.
Matt's story is the epitome of why I became a nurse,
while others see him as a jerk and a menace to society. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at Matt's life, career, and controversies. We'll explore what makes him such a legendary fighter, and we'll also delve into some of his darker moments. Whether you're a die-hard MMA fan or just interested in the human experience, this is a story that's worth hearing. And by the end, you'll be the one deciding who the real Matt Hughes is. Matthew Allen Hughes was born on October 13, 1973 in Hillsboro, Illinois, and grew up on a farm with his twin brother Mark and their sister Beth.
I live in Hillsboro because I love it. My farm is here, so I've always want to be around my farm, and when I get done fighting, I want to go back to the farm and just work. Not because I need to, but that's what my love is. So I'm familiar with this area. I want my kids to be raised in Hillsboro, so that's where I'm going to stay.
Hughes's father was a traditionalist who believed in strict and harsh discipline. As a way to rebel against his harsh upbringing, Matt has admitted, in his autobiography, to engaging in cruel behavior towards animals as a child, being disrespectful to his parents, and full-on hating his own twin brother.
We moved the furniture back against the wall, and they wrestled in the living room floor for years, right up until they were seniors.
If there is any positive way to look at his childhood anger, it is that it pushed Matt to excel in combat sports from a young age, making him a standout high school wrestler. During his junior and senior years, he went undefeated and won back-to-back state championships. Over the final 3 years of high school, he had 131 wins against only 2 losses. He continued his wrestling career in college, becoming a 2-time All-American at Lincoln Junior College with an 8th-place finish in the county in 1994 and a 3rd-place finish in 1995 in a national wrestling tournament. During his college years, Matt Hughes not only pursued his wrestling career, but also discovered mixed martial arts. His college days, however, were far from perfect, as he admits in his autobiography. He shamelessly boasts about cheating his way through the final stages of his education and barely attending classes. Even more disturbing is his revelation that he and his wrestling buddies used their size, strength, and combat techniques to bully and terrorize the campus of Lincoln Junior High. While he has surely matured since then, his behavior showed a complete disregard for the rules and contradicted the honor and discipline that martial arts represent. He finished his collegiate career at Eastern Illinois University, placing 7th nationally in 1996 and 5th nationally in 1997.
With Matt, one of his biggest strengths is his strength, and his training.
After graduation, he wasted no time and immediately began his professional mixed martial arts career in 1998. fighting for local promotions such as Extreme Challenge and Hook and Shoot.
What stood out with me the first time I watched Matt fight, I actually refereed that fight. I believe it was his first fight. Was just his tenacity, his athletic ability, his strength, and you know, a canvas that could definitely be turned into a masterpiece and be absolutely a world champion was what I thought instantly.
In his first professional fight back in January 1998, Hughes faced off against Eric Snyder and quickly established his authority with his signature move, a devastating slam that left audiences in awe.
I beat him in like a minute and a half or something, and pretty easy fight. He was a stand-up guy, I was a wrestler, so as soon as he was close enough to punch me, I just took him down and he didn't know what to do, so.
In 1999, Hughes's skills and reputation caught the attention of the UFC, and he was signed by the promotion. At the time, mixed martial arts was still a niche sport, and the fame and glory that fighters enjoy today were non-existent. For Hughes and other fighters of his era, the pursuit of glory, fame, and money came second to the love of the sport and the desire to be the best. So, even though Hughes's UFC debut was not an exceptionally glamorous event, it was still a defining moment in his career. His victory over his opponent, Valery Ignatov, marked the beginning of an illustrious career that would make him one of the most successful fighters in the history of the UFC.
And, you know, it was easy for me, I think.
Matt Hughes.
But here's a fun fact about Matt Hughes that you might not know. Before he made his UFC debut, he had already fought 9 matches and only lost once, way back in October 1998. His one loss was due to a guillotine choke from Dennis Hallman. But instead of giving up, Matt came back stronger. In fact, he went on to embark on an incredible 18-fight winning streak. We'll take a closer look at that in just a second. But before we move forward, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel.
Yo, this is Bully B. I invite you to subscribe to the Clenched Teeth.
By subscribing, we'll be able to keep in touch and you won't miss out on our future videos. From 1998 to 2000, Matt Hughes went on an absolutely incredible 18-fight win streak that made him one of the most dominant fighters in the sport.
Matt Hughes.
He dispatched his opponents with ease, and his relentless wrestling style made him virtually unbeatable.
I'm nervous every fight, but I try not to show it.
With each win, he gained more and more confidence, and his victories became more decisive. From slamming his opponents to the mat to choking them out cold, he put on a masterclass in MMA domination.
I just took it one fight at a time, you know, so I wasn't thinking, hey, this is going to lead me to a world title shot or anything like that. I just love to compete.
However, even the greatest of fighters can suffer setbacks, and for Hughes, that setback came at UFC 29 in December 2000 when he had a rematch against the only fighter that had ever defeated him until then, Dennis Hallman. In a shockingly quick match, Hallman locked in an armbar in the first 20 seconds of the fight, forcing Hughes to tap out. It was a stunning defeat for Hughes and left many wondering if the loss would shake his confidence or if he would come back even stronger. As far as Hallman's career went, it's both tragic and hilarious that although he has 2 submission wins over Hughes on his resume, this guy will always be remembered as the dude that wore a Speedo in a UFC fight, let his junk hang out on TV, and got finished by a guy with an arrow shaved into his chest.
I'd call it disgusting. That was disgusting.
But we'll save this story for a future video. Despite suffering 2 defeats at the hands of Hallman, Hughes wasn't about to let it break his spirit. He got back into the Octagon and proved that he was still one of the most dominant fighters in the world by fighting his way up to a title shot. In fact, just a few months after his loss to Hallman, Hughes faced off against Carlos Newton at UFC 34 in November 2001.
His entrance to the UFC was pretty extravagant. He had a playmate walk him down the ramp, and he had a big wig on, and it was just, you know, I was when I watched that happen, when I watched him walk down to the Octagon, which I was already in the Octagon, I was pretty happy that maybe he wasn't taking me as serious as he should have.
Let's get it on! Come on! Here we go!
It was a thrilling match that showcased both fighters' incredible skills and determination.
As you guys mentioned, 1 or 2 moves ahead of his opponent so often is what makes Carlos Newton such a special fighter right now.
During the fight, Hughes was caught in a deep triangle choke by Newton. However, he was able to lift Newton up high and slam him to the canvas. Funny enough, Hughes was put out by the choke as the slam was being delivered. However, the referee clearly saw that Newton was unconscious and thus awarded Hughes the win in the title. His slam of Newton is considered one of the greatest slams in UFC history and earned Hughes the welterweight belt for the first time.
My safety, front and center as, their most important thing they were dealing with at the time. In that process of dealing with that, they missed certain things, that in hindsight was obvious, but in all the emotion and all the excitement, a mistake was made, and they gave him the victory, and, I won the fight.
What's also interesting is that with this win, Hughes had avenged his own coach's loss. See, Hughes was a member of one of the early MMA training organizations called the Miletich Fighting Systems.
If you grab my leg, I'm gonna rifle right away.
It was established by Pat Miletich, who had been the very first UFC Welterweight Champion.
UFC Welterweight Champion of the world, Pat Miletich.
The organization has produced 14 world champions across different global MMA promotions, with 5 in the UFC, including Miletich himself, Matt Hughes, and Robbie Lawler. Pat Miletich defended his UFC welterweight title 4 times over a period of 2 years after winning it in 1998. In a big upset, however, he lost the title to Carlos Newton via a bulldog choke.
Pat lost his title to Carlos Newton, and they wouldn't let Pat rematch Carlos for the title shot, so Pat got to pick the opponent, so Pat picked me to go in and fight Carlos.
With his win over Newton, Hughes not only claimed the welterweight championship for himself, but also avenged his coach's loss, solidifying his place as one of the greatest fighters of his time.
We felt he was ready enough, knowledge-wise. Obviously, physically, he was easily ready.
He would successfully defend his title 5 times before losing it to BJ Penn in 2004.
And now, it's time to begin the Brawl at Royal Albert Hall.
Those title defenses include a rematch with Newton at UFC 38.
I think Carlos Newton has more weapons in his submission arsenal, obviously, than Matt Hughes.
Here we go, UFC Welterweight Championship. Are you ready for it? Are you ready? Let's get it!
Newton threatened him with submissions, but Hughes stopped him with punches in the 4th round.
First time I've ever been beat up like this, and yeah, he's the best.
And now, live!
In another memorable title defense at UFC 45, Hughes faced Frank Trigg.
This is a very interesting little struggle to see who's going to get the dominant position here.
Although Trigg actually took Hughes down and attempted to submit him early in the fight, he was unsuccessful.
He's been very active. He's fought the best. Here, Matt's got a hold of the fight. And he's going to put it to the center.
With just a little over a minute remaining in round 1, Hughes wrapped himself on Trigg's back and tapped him out via rear naked choke to remain the UFC welterweight champion. It was Hughes' 13th straight victory, and once again was awarded submission of the night. Many felt that he was unbeatable at this point, except for one man, BJ Penn. The two faced at UFC 46 in 2004 in what would be the start of a memorable rivalry.
He's got nasty hands.
Hughes wants the takedown.
In a stunning upset, Penn defeated Hughes by rear naked choke submission in the first round, ending Hughes' reign as champion.
He's got the choke! He's done it!
You know, say I beat Matt Hughes in the first round and I come out, you know, without any scratches, which is always the best case scenario.
This was Hughes' first loss in the UFC, who now lost not only his belt but his aura of being unbeatable. However, Penn's reign as champion was short-lived, as he left the UFC shortly after, following a contract dispute. This left the welterweight title vacant and set the stage for a new champion to emerge. And so, in October 2004, Hughes entered UFC 50 in what would go down as one of the greatest fights of his career, a title shot against Georges St. Pierre. It may sound bizarre now, but at the time, St. Pierre said he was scared to death to get in the cage with Hughes. Keep in mind, he was only 23 years old, and that was just his third fight in the UFC.
Someone will leave a champion, either for the first time or once again.
The fight was intense from the start, with GSP landing a brutal spinning back kick to Hughes' ribs early on. But Hughes wasn't about to give up that easily. He fought back from the damage done and took his opponent down multiple times throughout the fight.
Matt Hughes has passed the guard of St. Pierre. Not a good position for St. Pierre. He's going to go and reestablish the guard.
And then, in a stunning move, secured a nasty armbar that forced St. Pierre to tap out, winning him the welterweight championship for a second time.
And scores some points. Matt Hughes with a submission, and it's
I performed very well, but just at the end of the round, maybe the last seconds of the round, I did a beginner mistake. You know, usually I never did that type of mistake. I think the pressure was it was the first fight I had the pressure like this, and fighting Matt Hughes, you know, Matt Hughes is a monument in the sport, and I fight as a spectator during the last second of the round.
Ladies and gentlemen, this fight is...
Following that, Trigg and Hughes would meet again at UFC 52 in 2005.
Ton of hate between these two, to the point where Trigg walks out and literally touches Matt's face with his face, and Hughes pushes him backwards.
Early in the first round of the rematch, Trigg caught Hughes with a low blow that the referee missed.
Trigg actually kicks Matt in the nuts.
Seizing the opportunity, Trigg attacked a wounded Hughes and nearly sunk in the same rear naked choke that Hughes had used to defeat him years earlier.
Trigg knew that Matt Hughes got hit with an illegal blow. He still attacked him. He went after him.
But in a stunning turn of events, Hughes managed to escape Trigg's choke attempt, reverse position, and pick Trigg up in a moment that would go down in UFC history. Carrying Trigg across the octagon, Hughes slammed him to the mat and found himself on Trigg's back, sinking in another rear naked choke to complete one of the greatest comebacks in UFC history and retain his welterweight title.
17,000 people jumped up from their seats at the same time. It was one of the best comebacks ever.
You know, it's a nature sport. You know, you gotta complete, you gotta finish, and I didn't finish. He did.
It's a fight that will be remembered for years to come as one of the greatest moments in UFC history. At this moment in time, Hughes seemed truly unstoppable, and although he kept dispatching his opponents with ease, he was anxious for a rematch with BJ Penn. In September 2006, he got his chance. The first two rounds of the fight looked like history was going to repeat itself, with Penn dominating Hughes. But in the third round, Hughes saw his chance and started picking Penn apart. He eventually won the fight by technical knockout in another incredible moment in his legendary career. With his victory over BJ Penn, Hughes was on top of the world until he faced Georges St-Pierre for a second time at UFC 65.
When I fought Matt Hughes the first time, I remember in the stare downs, I couldn't even look him in the eyes because I was too impressed. I was fighting my idol. I was fighting a guy that, for me, it was impossible to beat.
In their second meeting, which took place in November 2006, St-Pierre was coming off a loss to Matt Serra and looking to prove himself as the top welterweight in the UFC. Hughes, on the other hand, was the reigning champion and looking to cement his legacy as one of the greatest fighters in UFC history.
Versatile with his striking. Good leg kick, a smile on Hughes' face.
The fight started off cautiously, but St-Pierre stunned Hughes with a head kick and finished him off with a flurry of strikes until the referee stopped the fight. Despite rebounding with a win over Chris Lytle, Hughes couldn't handle GSP's grappling skills in their third and final meeting in December 2007.
Well, the big question in this fight is how does Matt Hughes deal with the speed and athleticism of Georges St-Pierre?
St-Pierre once again displayed strong grappling skills and controlled Hughes on the ground.
St-Pierre has only been on his back for a minute in all his fights. He's the aggressor in the
After wearing Hughes out and gaining top control, GSP delivered hard shots to the body and locked in an armbar to pick up the win via submission.
Came in, no excuses here. I came in 120%. I really trained hard for this fight. I brought in some of the best people. We really had a good game plan. George is a better fighter. There's nothing else I can say besides that. I do want to thank my fans for showing up, and I also want to thank George's fans.
The Hughes versus St-Pierre trilogy determined the best welterweight in the world and marked the end of Hughes' reign in the division, paving the way for Georges St-Pierre's dominance. Things would never be the same for Hughes since he would go on losing to Thiago Alves in his next fight. And although he would bounce back with 3 consecutive wins, he would face off against BJ Penn once more in 2010. At the time, many fans argued that Penn no longer had the motivation, the dedication, and the drive to excel at the elite level, and that his best days were behind him. But as soon as the fight began, Penn silenced his critics with a devastating right hand that sent Hughes crashing to the mat. In just 21 seconds, Penn secured a stunning knockout victory and cemented his place as one of the greatest fighters of all time. It was a shocking turn of events for Hughes and a reminder of the unpredictable nature of MMA.
I had a lot on the line. This was a huge fight for me. So, to be honest, I don't know what goes on now.
What followed was Hughes' final fight, a match with Josh Koscheck in September 2011.
Well, come Saturday night when I step into the cage, I'm not going to like Matt Hughes, that's for sure. And that's what it is every time.
It was a highly anticipated fight.
Matt Hughes prepared well for this fight. It's very clear. He didn't have a lot of
and Hughes came in fully prepared to leave everything he had in the cage. Unfortunately, the fight ended in a shocking and brutal fashion in the final seconds of the first round.
He's out cold. It is all over.
Koscheck took Hughes down and unleashed a barrage of hammer fists until Hughes was rendered unconscious.
I just told Matt, I was like, hey, thanks for taking the fight. You'll always be respected in the sport, so thanks for taking the fight. It's basically what I told him.
It was a disappointing end to a legendary career for Hughes, who had fought and defeated some of the best fighters in the world. But all good things must come to an end, and it was clear that Hughes' time had come. He ultimately finished his career with a record of 45 wins and 9 losses as a 2-time welterweight champion with 7 combined title defenses.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest fighters of all time, one of the greatest welterweights ever, and one of the greatest human beings you can ever meet who helped us build this sport and business, Matt Hughes!
After that, he continued to stay involved in the world of mixed martial arts, serving as a UFC Vice President of Athletic Development and Government Relations. He was also inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2010, solidifying his legacy as one of the greatest fighters in UFC history. But Hughes' life took a dramatic turn in 2017 when he was involved in a serious car accident that left him with a traumatic brain injury.
Right now, we have new details about a crash early this morning.
Around 10:45, on a fateful Friday morning in July 2017, Hughes drove across train tracks in Montgomery County, Illinois. He couldn't spot an approaching train due to the absence of railroad crossing signs. The train crashed into Hughes' pickup truck on the passenger side, resulting in brutal injuries.
Matt had an accident in 2017, and this was a motor vehicle accident. He was crossing over a train track, and a train hit the back of his truck, and the truck went along with the train for a period of time. Unfortunately, there was a massive head injury involved with that particular accident.
He was rushed to a hospital where the doctors put him in a 19-day-long medically induced coma.
I was in a after the train wreck. The train hit me so hard, I was in a coma for 19 days. And they said with my brain injury, I shouldn't have locked-in syndrome, which is where I'm just in a bed or a chair watching TV, and I'm locked in my own body. But I can't speak. I don't speak or do nothing. I just keep to myself. That's what the experts said I should be.
Although he made rapid progress, his physical abilities have been severely hampered.
I've thought about suicide, but if I commit suicide, then I have so many people watching me. They might think it's good to do the same things, so I can't do that. It sucks. I can't even kill myself because other people would do the same.
Matt's story is the epitome of why I became a nurse. I just want him to know how incredibly proud I am of him. He beat the odds and won the biggest fight of his life. He will forever be an inspiration to the care I provide my patients.
Years after the accident, he continues to work and improve on his motor skills, showing up regularly to the gym. But his estranged wife, Audra, said that shortly after he recovered from the trauma of the accident, around September or October 2017, he physically attacked her. She claimed that one day, after she refused to give Matt his truck keys, worried he wasn't ready to drive again, he snapped, choked her, and smashed her head against a wall. Nearly a year later, in July 2018, he also allegedly threatened her with a gun. Around Christmas that year, he also allegedly hit her in front of their children. Hughes received a restraining order in 2019 after his wife filed a domestic violence complaint against him. In response, he filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and requesting joint custody of their 2 children. Hughes' twin brother, Mark, also got a restraining order against him because Hughes reportedly hurt Mark's 15-year-old son over a family argument. Hughes said his life changed forever after the crash and that he's not the same person. However, he denied all the allegations against him.
Traumatic brain injury from the train hitting me so hard, it really tripped me up and gave me a brain shear, which is carrying the axle away from the brain.
Matt Hughes, ladies and gentlemen.
Despite the tumultuous events that followed his retirement, there's no denying the impact that Matt Hughes had on the sport of mixed martial arts.
Matt Hughes' legacy, the best champ the UFC has ever had.
His record-breaking career, iconic battles, and dominant performances cemented him as one of the greatest welterweight fighters of all time.
Matt Hughes is a pioneer in this sport and has helped this sport evolve.
Hughes was a fierce competitor who always put on a show for the fans, and his legacy will live on in the hearts and minds of MMA enthusiasts for years to come.
Matt Hughes was the most dominant champion of his time.
Even after all he's been through, Hughes remains an inspiration for his unwavering determination and perseverance in the face of adversity.